The world stands on the precipice of a global conflict as President Trump issues a chilling ultimatum. Iran could be taken out in a single night. Setting a deadline for 8 p.m. Eastern Time this Tuesday, the president warned that the entire country faces total demolition if the Strait of Hormuz remains closed. The threat specifically targets civilian infrastructure, including power plants and bridges, a move many international observers warn could constitute a war crime. But is such a feat even possible? Military analysts are crunching the numbers to see if a nation can truly be taken out in 24 hours. Analysis suggests that even a flight of 6 B-2 stealth bombers carrying nearly 200 JDAM bombs would only scratch the surface of Iran's vast infrastructure. Adding 40 F-15s to the mix brings the total to over 300 heavy bombs. Yet analysts say this is still insufficient to drop hundreds of thousands of bridges. Power plants are hardened, massive structures. While generators could be damaged, causing long-term blackouts, destroying the entire network in one night is unlikely. The vulnerability of modern aircraft was highlighted this weekend when a U.S. F-15 was brought down by a simple shoulder-fired missile. These man-pads, costing only thousands of dollars, have now claimed a $100 million jet, prompting a dramatic rescue mission deep in Iranian territory. The rescue operation itself was costly, resulting in the loss of an A-10 attack jet and 2 Hercules transport planes, underscoring the high stakes of every mission. In a startling move, the IDF has issued an urgent warning to Iranian citizens. Stay away from trains and railway lines for your own safety. The warning, ending just hours before Trump's deadline, suggests that Iran's transportation network may be a primary target in the coming strikes. Tehran remains defiant. The IRGC has dismissed the threats as baseless and delusional, promising a forceful, retaliatory response. In a desperate bid for protection, Iranian officials have called on the youth to form human chains around the country's power plants to deter bombings. Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei stated that the assassination of top commanders will not deter Iran's resolve, following the death of their top intelligence officer. Behind the scenes, a critical diplomatic race is underway. Pakistan and Egypt are acting as peace brokers, leveraging ties to both sides. Pakistan's ambassador says peace efforts are approaching a critical and sensitive stage, though a breakthrough remains elusive as the clock ticks. Qatar has also condemned the ongoing strikes, urging a diplomatic solution to spare the region from further reckless endangerment. The war is sparking a historic energy crisis. Asian allies of the U.S. are scrambling to secure deals to save their faltering economies. Japan and the Philippines, heavily reliant on Middle Eastern oil, have bypassed U.S. efforts to strike their own safe passage agreements with Tehran. South Korea has dispatched a special envoy to Kazakhstan and Oman to secure alternative crude supplies, as 26 of its vessels remain stranded. Concerns are also mounting over strikes on Iran's nuclear fuel cycle. An alleged attack on a yellowcake facility has been condemned by Tehran. The IAEA has confirmed damage to the plant, but reports no increase in radiation levels. Yet the attack on a peaceful nuclear site marks a dangerous escalation. Meanwhile, in central Israel, rescue teams are responding to sites hit by Iranian cluster munitions, weapons designed to evade air defenses. The targeting of civilian infrastructure has ignited a fierce debate. Is the demolition of power plants a strategic necessity or a mass war crime? Outspoken U.S. lawmakers warn that these actions could leave a black mark on the military, killing tens of thousands of innocent civilians. President Trump argues that the Iranian people might be willing to suffer if it eventually secures their freedom from the current regime. This isn't the first time the region has stood on the brink. To understand today's crisis, we must look at the history of the Strait of Hormuz. The tanker war of the 1980s saw hundreds of merchant vessels attacked, a haunting precedent for the current maritime blockade. For decades, the strait has been used as a geopolitical pawn, a strategic choke point that can single-handedly trigger a global economic recession. Back in the United States, the public is deeply divided. While some support the president's strength, others fear the consequences of an avoidable war. From city streets to university campuses, the debate over American intervention in Iran is reaching a fever pitch as the deadline approaches. At home, Americans are already feeling the pinch at the pump. The energy crisis is no longer a distant threat. It's a daily reality for millions. The crisis is also widening the rift between the U.S. and its NATO allies, who have been notably absent from Operation Epic Fury. Many European nations have publicly urged for de-escalation, fearing that a total war with Iran will destabilize the entire continent's security. President Trump suggested that this friction began with his proposal for the U.S. to take over Greenland, a move that fundamentally shifted NATO's internal dynamics. But the war isn't just being fought in the air and sea. A massive cyber offensive is also underway, targeting both nations' critical digital infrastructure. State-sponsored hackers are working around the clock to disable power grids, banking systems, and communication networks on both sides of the conflict. In Iran, a total digital blackout has been imposed to prevent the flow of Western information, leaving millions in the dark about the impending strikes. Beyond the politics and military strategy, the true toll of this escalation is being felt by the most vulnerable populations on the ground. Hospitals in Iran are already struggling with severe shortages of medicine and equipment as the blockade chokes the country's supply chains. Tens of thousands of families are fleeing major cities, seeking refuge in rural areas to escape the threatened total demolition of their homes. Neighboring countries are now bracing for a massive refugee crisis, one that could overwhelm the already strained infrastructure of the Middle East. Turkey and Iraq have both increased their border security, fearing that a full-scale invasion of Iran will trigger a humanitarian catastrophe of historic proportions. The United Nations has issued an urgent appeal for both sides to return to the negotiating table before the Tuesday deadline passes and the first bombs fall. As the final hours of the deadline tick away, the world's attention remains fixed on a single question. Will this Tuesday mark the beginning of a new, more destructive phase of the war, or can a last-minute deal pull the region back from the brink? We will continue to bring you the latest as this story develops. For now, the deadline looms, and the entire globe holds its breath.